can you hear me? If I talk louder, like this? Am I good like this?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, cool. Hi, my name is Adam Bell, B3LL on Twitter, not B311, because a lot of people ask me about that, and it's kind of funny for a conversation starter anyways. I'm here to talk about stuff, aka what I've been working on for the past year, and how I overcame some of those problems. Just out of curiosity's sake, who likes more technical and who likes more descriptive, if that makes sense? For technical, I guess your hands. And just for more descriptive background, very cool. Okay, we can do both then. That works for me. Anyways, so who am I? I'm Canadian. I like red. I like working on anything I can get my hands on, basically. That's what I've been known to do anyways, and I like dabbling in as many areas as I possibly can, most of which have been iPhone and iPod Touch. I've worked with iOS, Macintosh, Android, Windows Phone. Does anybody in the room have a BlackBerry? Just out of curiosity sake. No, okay, perfect. I can make fun of them. And then basically anything else I can get my hands on. So I started iPhone dev back in 2007, 2008, somewhere around that area, right when Super Monkey Ball came out for the iPod Touch, and it was like the best game ever, and everybody had to have it. I couldn't afford a Mac at the time, so I took my crappy old Dell computer that I used to play Need for Speed on, and I turned it into a Macintosh. Just happened to have all the components, and I used that for a bit. And that was when I started working on an iPod Touch, which was probably the coolest thing at the time, as far as my school goes, since everybody was still walking around with MP3 players and whatnot. Speaking of history and the iPod Touch, who remembers this? AppSnap, installer, those were the good old days. That's where I got started, and that was my first like real hacking experience, I guess. Just being able to open up Safari, watch it crash, and like jailbreak device. It was the coolest thing. So I've had a few apps in the App Store I built. Those were helping some background information for my tweaks and whatnot. Learn more, feel for the ecosystem, how to write proper applications, and how to code things that people actually want to use. My first application was Vivid. That was a wallpaper maker. Then I made Reprise, sorry, my bad. And that was a music player, and I was really annoyed with the Apple music player, so I went and wrote my own. And then Crest was more of a tech demo, just showing off the WWDC app wall that they had. I just ported that over to Twitter, basically. And it was just a neat concept to show, especially for AirPlay. I then moved to the Cydia store. And I have quite a few things under my belt, not as many as Ryan, which is like everything basically, but I have a few. Cascade was adding that cover flow that everybody had in Teams right from the beginning. They just went and hard-coded things that they had rotated in Photoshop. I went and made that part of your dock, and then I worked with the CHphone on releasing that with Infinidock, so you can scroll through those. I then released Stride, which is probably my biggest news thing, I think, anyways. It's a cool phone. Stride was a way of unlocking your phone using gestures other than just a slide to unlock. You could create passwords by drawing pictures, which is actually kind of neat. And then Messagebox came out. That was my first real open source project release, other than the UI Yankat, where I was just messing around with nav bars, making pretty colors and everything. Messagebox was my hack for the Facebook client. When Chatheads first came out, it was something I really wanted to have, and that was one of my biggest accomplishments, I think, thus far. And then Post Office came up right around Google I/O when Glass came out, and I'll touch on both of those during my talk. So Messagebox, or aka the Chatheads hack, was something that broke out Facebook Chatheads from the normal app. Everybody wanted to have it in Messages. Apple obviously didn't allow that, and I think Cook said that he just didn't think they were a valid partner. What I did was I made them system-wide. I made it compatible with iPhone and iPad as it should be, and then I made it open source because I really didn't want to knock on Facebook Store and try and steal money away from them on something that they made for free. And somehow, I don't know, those guys were amazing down there. They must appreciate my work. It still works for the most part, and I have not touched it in, I think, 6 months or a few months anyways. Anyway, so Chatheads. When it first came out, it was unfortunately Android only. I could not have it. I really wanted to use it. It was this really cool way of interacting with people around you, and I couldn't have it. So I was just really, really upset. And then it came out for the iPhone. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. We get to use Chatheads. They made some crazy deal with Apple, and it was just in the app, which made absolutely zero sense to me. And so then I strove to get that. I wanted it. I literally got it in that night. I just worked throughout the night because it was just something I've been dabbling struggling with all day long, and I finally managed to accomplish it. And it was through the use of cycript, or script, as Sarah dubs it. Cycript sounds cooler. Coloring filter, it even sounds cool. That's what I use. It's this really, really cool way of manipulating the iOS runtime. How many of you people have used it before? Obviously. Anyways, just in a brief sense of how it works, it takes JavaScript, or it takes Objective-C, turns it into JavaScript, and then lets you do really cool things in memory. So instead of uploading a file or installing a mobile substrate extension, you can basically tweak around with views just using JavaScript, or Objective-C if you want to do that too, and it kind of just works. It's really, really fun to play with, and it's great for prototyping tweaks, because that way you don't need to worry about breaking everything, it's just temporary. So if you guys want to get into that, it's literally like you can just type in script and then the process name, and then you can call whatever method you want in that app. It's really kind of cool. It's like F-script, if you guys have ever used that before. Anyways, I'll get to a demo of that later, you can see how it works. A few things that were a bunch of hiccups and were really annoying. This was the first use I got to learn was XPC. XPC is an Apple framework for sharing things between processes. And things, I mean strings or words or documents or anything like that. It's a way of sharing things between processes without having the memory. I don't know how it works. I'm not going to try and describe it. Anyways, somebody can do a better description than me. Basically, it means that you can send something from one app to the other with ease in memory, relatively speaking. And it's what remote views use. So anytime you want to go and compose a message or an email, they don't want you to always have to rewrite your own implementation of that mail client just to send off a simple email. So Apple says, well, here's this view controller. You can call up the mail app, and it'll send it for you. It'll handle everything else for you. And what it's doing is it's going to the mail app and saying, give me a view, and then it'll take that review and it'll bring it up over top of what you're using. Another document that was posted was the concept of remote views, which is what this was used in. It was used in iOS 6, but again, we don't have it used to it yet. I was hoping it was going to be announced in iOS 7, so you could write your own like share controllers and stuff like that. But sadly, we don't have anything yet. And what I repurposed this for was to use Facebook to communicate with Springboard. And what I originally wanted to do was to say, okay, Facebook, give me the chat heads view, I'm just going to take it out of your app, and I'm going to stick it somewhere else. And as much as I'd like trying that, it's not possible. Not even going to try it. But I did learn something interesting about it. On iOS 6, I think it was 6, we have been trying it 7, they came out with a thing called Backboard. So there's Springboard, which is where you launch your apps, and then there's Backboard. And using Backboard, I was able to actually keep the Facebook app still running, more so than it already is. I think it has like every known backgrounding thing to try and keep itself open. I don't know how they're doing it, but they're doing that. And I tried creating that Facebook app originally as a remote view, and it failed, so then I moved to Backboard. And like I was saying, Backboard works in conjunction with Springboard. So Springboard is the one that does the Spring. It handles some pretty animations now. Before it could handle everything, now it just basically you tap on an app, it does a little cool little animation, and then it leaves the rest of your app. Backboard is the more important one now. It's the one that's saying, okay, this app has access to this app has access to this, without brute terms. I don't know how it works with that anyways. But in the terms of how much the CPU you can use up, if you guys have ever heard Watchdog, that's now part of Backboard. A lot of that is integrated in that one Backboard service where it tries to handle all the security or the hidden behind the scenes work, where Springboard is the one that's showing all the pretty animations and whatnot. Speaking of Backboard, when I was working this really cool daemon called Megatron D, which is used internally at Apple, and I don't know what it is, it's just really awesome, I thought I'd bring that up. Continuing on. Backboard services is a bit like the framework that backs Backboard, if that makes sense. It's how Apple will link against this private library so they can give apps special permissions. Watchdog, on the other hand, likes to be a jerk and kill every single app imaginable. And that's why, I can't remember the name of the developer. Do you remember who wrote Backgrounder? Does anyone here remember who wrote Backgrounder?
Oh, Backgrounder.
Backgrounder, yeah. Ash Case? Yeah. Perfect. That guy is amazing. He wrote that in, I think it was 3 or 4. Anyways, and it didn't use any of this, but it's the same sort of idea where it would give apps the ability to stay in the background without Apple trying to kill it. And what you can do with a thing called BKS process assertion, or background service process assertion, is you can do the same sort of idea. You can give apps the ability to run in the background without Apple's permission, and it will not work in the store. But it's needed especially for things like the chathead attack, where it needed OpenGL. Chatheads will not use OpenGL to animate, that's all core animation. But when you go to like the profile page, it'll blur the background image, or it'll do certain like image blurs, which need graphics card to actually process because the CPU isn't fast enough. Continuing on, it was a little bit annoying to try and figure this out. Hamza Sood on Twitter, I hope I pronounced your name right. Anyways, he helped me find these process solution flags. And I was trying to delve through it, it was really getting annoying. I found some of them, but most of them, what they're basically doing is they're saying this app will continue running in the background. It'll continue handling touch events, it'll continue, it won't throttle the app down, so when you close an app, it doesn't really close it, it just slows it down, so it uses less power. This will turn all that stuff off. It'll keep it running as it should be natively. And then you can give it a reason. Some are for audio. VoIP apps will do this, like Ryan had mentioned. Springboard starts up to launch all the VoIP apps. You can get your incoming internet calls. This is the same sort of idea, and it uses this in the background as a part of Backboard to handle these apps. So let's say your app declares itself as a VoIP app. Backboard will be like, okay, this app needs these special permissions to stay open. So now we can get to the cool demo part. I wrote this up last night. I took some of my code from MessageBox. A few of you guys have told me that you've used it in the past. I know Ryan was messing with the Yahoo button to stick it on the lock screen, and it's like, now that this is found out, you can do a lot more cool things, even though you're draining a lot of the power by keeping a bunch of apps open at the same time. It's really fun to experiment with, and it can be kind of cool. So we'll jump to that now. So this is where we get into the fun part of script. How much is that is visible? Or is it just too much text and you can't read anything? Bigger. Bigger?
And we're wrapped.
Okay. Okay, how you
Sci-fi?
Can you zoom?
Command plus.
Is it Command Plus and Sublime?
I don't know if it's in
It is. Okay, never mind. I didn't see it super the first time. Anyways, so script, like I said, you can launch it from the command line. So I'm going to SSH my phone. And we're going to pull it up over here. I think that still works. That works? That works. Okay, perfect. And what you can do, like I said, is you can go script and you can give it the name of an app. So let's say you want to launch it as Springboard. You just do that, Springboard. And what you get is this terminal where you can type in JavaScript. So 4 equals 8. It's like really, really simple. We do an string okay. And what it'll do is it'll convert that into JavaScript, and it'll be treated as a JavaScript string. It's really kind of nifty, but problems with is if you're ever using views and whatnot, you can't really do a CG-rect make, CG-point make. KTM is really nice and real. It's like helper functions. You can find those on the iPhone wiki. So I'll just paste those in. Okay, good. So now we have those functions, which are JavaScript functions that will work here, and will let me organize views on screen. Now, the next part. When you close an application, there's a thing, part of the app, called the context. And when you close that app, it closes that context and will stop rendering the app. Saves on battery life, saves the CPU cycles, and it really just throttles the app right down. This is, for some reason, it's not a private method, or it's a private method, but it's not documented, but it doesn't have the private prefix. So, I don't know, I managed to find that in there. It's useful. I use it in the Facebook app, again, to keep everything rendering in the background. So for every app we're going to launch now, we're going to use this. So first off, we're going to launch the Facebook app. And we're going to open up another script terminal. Perfect. And we're going to tell it to keep everything in the background. So now if we close it, it'll stay in the background. You won't see it, but we're going to change that. Next part. The problem with Backboard services is your app needs to be signed with certain entitlements. I don't know if you've ever heard about that before. But basically what it does is, again, Springboard has the entitlement to launch apps. Certain apps have the entitlement to run as root. This one, you need to have the entitlement to give unlimited assertions, or basically you need to have permission to assign these Backboard services, or assertions, sorry. And we're going to give it to Springboard. So Springboard will keep the Facebook app open. I already put that. I can't put that in the script because I don't know how to do just some functions yet. So let's go with that. Next part. So what you can do is you can grab the Facebook instance from Springboard. Then what you can do is this really cool thing. It's called the context host view. And what that is when you're on your phone and you invoke the multitasking, what that's doing is it's taking the current app, it's copying it to another view, and then it's moving that view upwards. And it's such a quick way that you don't notice that your app has actually changed. And it's putting it in a way where it's secure, in the way that it won't actually mess up your layout or anything like that. So what we can do now is, because it's in the background, we can grab it and we can say, okay, give me a view that I can display somewhere. So we'll do that. Now we go. Oh, right, sorry. There. Now we have a view we can display somewhere. And now that because we have that view made, it'll just show up on top because we added it as a subview, which is right here. So now, again, it's not showing on screen, that's fine. So now it's up on screen, whereas it's actually part of Springboard. That's why you can see the keyword coming out, and it's just showing over top. So that would be like Spotlight, it's just covering it. To show that Springboard is underneath, we'll shrink it down and we'll change the frame of it. And copy paste, boom. So you can see that. Now we have a little baby Facebook app in the corner. It still works, everything's still there. So now we can start doing the crazy parts, where we can start keeping this one alive. Because if I leave it there for a couple seconds, it'll probably lock up. And when we say this, now that BKS process assertion, which is right there, is basically locking the app and saying you can stay up as long, or stay open as long as you want, as long as you don't crash. So now we'll try this with a different app. Let's try with Twitter effect. I'm going to copy all this in because it's much easier than just saying it. That's again, it's the same lines of code. And what we first have to do is we have to tell the Twitter effect app to keep all of the context when you close the app. So script. Oops. What's that? And go back to our Springboard. There, now we have two views, and they're part of this context view, which is on top of Springboard. Let's close the app, bam. Now we have two apps on top of Springboard. They all work independently, all the scrolls, all the touches get transferred all over those, and you can start going crazy with this. I've only tried 4, so we'll try and see if the thing actually runs out of RAM or not. This is an app I wrote for my school. Again, it's just a normal UI app. It should work just the same. You just need to use those same steps where you are telling it to keep the context in the background. And fourth app. And one more, we'll do weather just for the fun of it. So now we have 4 apps running on top of Springboard, and all the scroll views, this is the cool part, they all work independently of each other, and they're all transferring the touches through those views on top of Springboard. Yeah?
Is there a way to
Wow, you guys have to be on this earlier, sorry, it's there, because I have like an iPhone here. Now, did you see any of it before? Or was it just always hidden? Oh, that just killed the vibe. Anyways, no, I'm not starting over, those forever. Basically now, you can see that all the touches are getting transferred through Springboard on top of these 4 little miniature baby apps. And even to the point where you can like send a tweet like mid-app on top of Springboard. It's kind of ridiculous and not very difficult to close the keyboard. Again, you can see that the keyboard window is shared between apps. That's why we have the second keyboard that'll pop up over top of it. And that's what some of the problems I were having with Messagebox, where I had multiple keyboards coming up. Where are you coming from? Just like calm for a second. But yeah, so all these apps are running now. You can see like the pull to refresh I just did there. Facebook app again, it's still scrolling. And even to the point where if you're using like Spotlight or something,
You're typing it over right now.
yeah, I know, I'm trying to close it, I can't. That sucks. Hold on. Go. Whatever. Okay, so they got it. So now we got that. So now this scroll view works independently of all these other apps, which can use them all at the same time. Which is kind of ridiculous. It shows how the documents are getting sent through everything. And it's really, really fun to play with. But again, it's one of those, like it's basically what I wrote in this like 3 seconds of using those backward services was, I don't know if you guys remember Quasar at all?
Yeah.
Which was like, on iPad you could have like multiple apps running at the same time, and you can go and just like have messages open and then as Safari open at the same time, you can be taking notes from Safari at the same time. It's like those are the sort of cool things that you see from Apple internal that you don't normally get to see in the App Store. And some of the engineers kind of find it fascinating when they either A, see this working, or B, you find these hidden gems in their software that you can just mess around with. And that's part of the cool thing of A, script, and B, jailbreaking is you can play around with all these hidden frameworks that you wouldn't normally be able to. How was that? Good? Good. All right. Going back. Another thing, post office, which was iOS notifications on Glass. Glass is severely crippling. It's a really, really cool idea. It's just as far as iOS goes, you get a web browser that you can add websites or Wi-Fi networks to, and that's pretty much all you can get on the iOS side of things. If you pair it, you can get phone calls, but that's about it. You don't get messages, you don't get directions, you don't get anything that makes Glass. Oh, you get the Google Plus app that everybody here uses, apparently. Again, so I was trying to mess around with it, and I didn't really want to use an Android phone, so then I decided to write up an app that will hook all the notifications on iOS and send them to Glass. Open source as well, I'll write it up. And what it was doing is just basically taking every single banner that comes up when you get a notification and saying, here, go to Glass. It's just posting it right to their REST endpoint. And it's the same idea where if you're just, you can sometimes just use things to get what you want kind of quicker, just because they're already there. There's no sense of delving deeper into the Apple frameworks for finding when the notifications come in. If a view is already coming up, just hijack it. Like if it'll make your life easier and it won't corrupt anything that you're using, it doesn't really hurt if you want to use that. And then what I did was I grouped all the notifications into a single timeline or so on Glass. And yeah, so what's next? I really don't know. I'm more excited to see what people come up with iOS 7 and iOS 8 because basically all the UI paradigms just changed entirely. As far as Android goes, yeah, I'm not going to go there. I just don't really care. There is mobile substrate for Android, which is kind of cool, or Cydia substrate, sorry, which is pretty cool to play with. But again, I like staying on the iOS right now, mainly because of cycript or script. And yeah.